In this video, I've got a jam-packed news update with 4 topics to cover, starting out with why devs are saying PS5 just makes sense. After that, I gotta say it, publishers are delusional. Ubisoft just said that microtransactions make games more fun. Third on the list, let's talk about Hellraiser Revival and why it's not exactly what you think in a good way. And finally, Sucker Punch just said that they're interested in doing a PS5 Infamous Trilogy remaster, so I just want to talk about it to let them know that yes, we really want that. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. If you like the videos, subscribe, set your notifications to all. But let's jump into this first news story here because there's a lot of drama going on related to one new game from Moon Studios called No Rest for the Wicked. So right now, this game's only available on PC in early access. It was actually started through Private Division, which was owned by Take-Two Interactive, and then through a long, arduous process that involved them selling the rights to all these games, blah, blah, blah. The studio, Moon Studio, was able to buy the rights back to the game, and they're back on track updating it in early access. And a lot of people are asking questions like, when is the game coming to PlayStation 5? And the studio director, the owner, Thomas Mahler, responded and said some good stuff for PlayStation owners. He said they've got to prioritize the PlayStation 5 just because of sheer numbers, right? The most amount of people who would be willing to buy their game are on PlayStation 5. The second most are obviously on Switch 2. So if they're talking about consoles, at 1.0 launch, it's going to launch on PS5 and PC for sure. And it might not launch at the same time on Switch 2, but it definitely won't launch at the same time on Xbox. And of course, Xbox fans were not happy about this because Moon Studios' last 2 games, Ori and the Will of the Wisps and Ori and the Blind Forest, were Xbox exclusives. I'm pretty sure both of them, if not Will of the Wisps, launched day 1 into Game Pass. So they're obviously upset. They're like, why are you not taking a Game Pass deal from Xbox like you did with your last 2 games? And he's like kind of a critic of Game Pass for the same reason everyone else is in the industry lately, in the sense that if you encourage people to just download your games for free, you can't sell it to them later. They'll play it for free. Maybe they'll play an hour of it. Maybe they'll beat the entire thing. But when push comes to shove, once that game is taken off the subscription service, the amount of people who show up to buy it, they just aren't there. And it doesn't make sense to spend time, energy, and money porting your game to a console that no one's going to buy games on, because the big upfront payment from Xbox surely helps during development. But if you don't need it, you shouldn't take it, because that kind of hurts you in the long run, because you don't get the money from people downloading your game for free on the subscription service. I really have no problem with this because it lines up with everything I've been saying for the past year. I mean, it's clear that people have been trained to not only play games for free on Xbox, but just try them out and not even invest time into even getting the first achievement in most cases. And with Xbox's future essentially being abandoning the Xbox platform to make a Windows PC that has an Xbox overlay, why would any publisher or developer spend time, energy, and money porting to a console that's not going to get support going forward for its own operating system? Like, clearly Xbox's perfect world would be they invent some emulator for Xbox, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and Series X games that you can then play on that new PC. But everyone in the industry has heard that publishers are essentially like laughing them out of the room, saying, no, if you want to get these games on PC, relicense them. That's a whole new platform. You're just playing them through emulation. You've got to pay a licensing fee. And since you're talking about multiple generations of console, the amount of money that Xbox would have to spend to continue to support your library going forward obviously isn't worth it for them, because they get no money back from you for doing it. They just have a complete and utter messaging problem coming out of this whole situation where, you know, in addition to what I just talked about, the Xbox ROG Ally 2, people aren't aware that you could just get the exact same experience right now if you go to Best Buy and buy an ROG Ally or ROG Ally X. Like, yeah, the Z2 Extreme version is going to be a lot faster than the Z1 Extreme version, but the Z1 Extreme version you can get right now is going to run laps around the cheaper version of the Xbox ROG Ally because it's using the Steam Deck chip and pushing it on Windows and a 1080p screen. So it's going to be a subpar experience for everyone who's not playing at 720p. And a lot of those people seem to think they're going to be able to play the Xbox games that they bought and owned. That's not happening, at least at launch. There's no way they're going to have that ready to go at the end of 2025. So yeah, I talked about this a lot with Tom of Moore's Law is Dead on his podcast, but Sony is set up really well with their handheld coming out because they're really only trying to capture the PlayStation audience. Like, that device does not need to be a Nintendo Switch size thing. It just needs to do well enough to continue to support it. But the real killer edge that it's going to have is that it's going to play your PS4 and PS5 games that you already own. So you'll be able to take advantage of the library you already have. It's very similar to the PS Portal. So they don't even have to worry about Valve in the same way Microsoft does in the Steam Deck, because if someone like me, who has a ton of games like Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us 1 and 2, Uncharted 4, blah, 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 the list goes on and on of first-party PlayStation games I have on PS5, I'm not buying a Steam Deck 2 if I don't already have a PC with a massive Steam library. But me, I love handhelds. I'm buying both these things, and I'll play my PlayStation games on the PlayStation handheld, I'll play my PC games on the Steam Deck, and I'll be having a great time, because it's exactly how I do things now. I think that's a huge reason why Sony has not activated a cross-save in any way for PS5 games to PC through Steam, because, you know, they don't want to encourage people to build a PC and abandon the PS5 ecosystem. More power to them there. I'm glad that they keep giving reasons for people to buy the PlayStation console, because that's what makes great games, people staying in one ecosystem and spending their time there. But I also am happy that they're supporting the PC, and, you know, I think the system that they have where they make people wait a year or so for a game to come out on PC, just keep that going forward. But also port Gran Turismo 7. I really want that on PC because my racing wheel does not work on PS5. So yeah, that's why devs are saying the PS5 just makes sense. Let's talk about Ubisoft here, because they're catching a lot of flack thanks to this whole stop killing games movement. I'm obviously on the side of stop killing games. I have seen so many of my favorite racing games completely disappear, like the entire Forza Horizon franchise, whether or not it's because Microsoft is incapable of making a good licensing deal, or they just don't want to make a licensing deal that costs so much that they get the licensing going forward forever. It doesn't matter. Their games get delisted after 4 or 5 years because they lose the licensing rights to the cars in the games. And up until now, they've obviously had a new Forza Horizon sitting there waiting for people to jump into, but because they split that studio, have them working on Fable, and we have no idea where the next Forza Horizon is. I mean, we could see a situation where Forza Horizon 5 gets delisted before Forza Horizon 6 comes out. And on top of that, Forza Horizon 1, 2, 3, and 4 are already delisted. The Crew is delisted. A lot of racing games get taken offline and are delisted, and you are stopped from playing them ever again. So Ubisoft put out a financial report, and in the first paragraph, they said the golden rule there is to allow players to enjoy the game in full without having to spend more. Really? Are you sure? Are you sure about that? Are you sure, Ubisoft? You're not the company that fills their games with microtransactions and time passers like in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where you could pay for an XP boost that makes it so you get XP a lot faster, can actually finish the game in under 100 hours? Really? You go in with the golden rule of making sure it's most fun when you don't have extra content? No, you don't. But then they go on to say that they have a monetization offer, in quotes, that makes the player experience more fun by allowing them to personalize their avatars or progress more quickly. However, this is always optional. Yeah, sure, it's optional, I guess, but when you're talking about a game like Odyssey, or I don't know, The Crew, where you've got 400 or 500 hours of content there, and you just don't have the time to invest into it, because let's be real, it's not that good. It's not like Red Dead Redemption 2 or Breath of the Wild or something. No one wants to spend 400 or 500 hours in an Assassin's Creed open world RPG, especially when the new one's coming out a year later and you're giving them 3 years worth of content to get through. So what do? They sell you an XP booster for $10 that gets the game to take as long as it probably should for free. And then they were talking about how microtransactions like that make the game more fun. Hey, I'm the player. I buy your games. If someone at Ubisoft is watching, they don't make it more fun. They make it more frustrating. And it's insane considering you're charging $70 for these games. And to get every piece of content, you've got to buy the $120 Ultimate Gold Edition of Star Wars Outlaws. They also had some jargon about Outlaws bombing because it was in Star Wars. I'll tell you why it bombed. No one liked the main character. It ran like dog and still does run like dog. And it's just a boring open world game. Take more time on your games. Stop cookie cuttering everything between Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, Star Wars, Avatar, and everything else. And just give the time the games they need and let developers kind of cook on new ideas. I think The Crew is a standout in the world of Ubisoft games because, you know, they kind of do their own thing. You can't force Far Cry mechanics into a car game, thankfully, or I'm sure they would have by now. And while I don't love The Crew Motorfest as much as other games like Forza Horizon 5, I'm excited for The Crew 3. I'm glad they're going back and adding in support to keep The Crew 2 offline and The Crew Motorfest. So I hope whatever happens to Ubisoft, the Crew team gets out okay and is able to take the IP with them, because if you look at all the Ubisoft studios, everything's going right. But yeah, it doesn't make it more fun, makes the game worse in every way. Stop taking your games offline after charging full price for them. I know that they have all this jargon about how it makes it hard, whatever. Make peer-to-peer servers, make an offline mode. That's not that big of an ask from people who are giving you their time and money. Stop wasting it. But yeah, speaking of games I'm excited about, Hellraiser Revival. Have you guys seen the trailer for this? I got the trailer early from an undisclosed source and I sat on it for 5 5 days just watching it over and over again because I can't believe they listened. I've been asking for this for years. Not an asymmetrical horror game where one person plays as Pinhead or another Cenobite and 4 other people play as a survivor and have to run away, like Dead by Daylight, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. There's so many of these asymmetrical games and they all die immediately. This is kind of like Resident Evil 7 in the Hellraiser world. Clive Barker's involved. It's called Hellraiser Revival, and the plot involves you playing as a guy named Aiden, who's got a hot girlfriend who gets taken by the Cenobites when she, activates the Lament configuration. And then you get, I think it's called the Grace configuration or something like that. I don't know. It's like the good version of the Rubik's Cube, and you can use it against bad guys. They also confirmed that there's going to be melee combat, ranged combat. I think this looks awesome. It looks like the old movies. I am someone who has watched every Hellraiser movie. I know you guys are a lot younger than me, so you didn't grow up watching horror movies on AMC Fear Fest every Halloween. I could make it through most of them when I was 5 or 6. Hellraiser scared the shit out of me, and then the next day my mom took me to Sam Goody to get a Halloween costume, and they had every Cenobite's perfect quality Trick or Treat Studios mask across the wall. I ran out of there. I was terrified. So I've always loved Hellraiser. I watched Hellraiser 2, which is like Halloween and Halloween 2. It picks up right at the end. After that, franchise falls off a cliff. I think Hellraiser 3 is fun. There's another one where a guy uses Pinhead as a coffin and he's hot. So he brings hot chicks back to his apartment and then Hellraiser sucks them into a coffin. It's awesome. Then there's one with Adam Scott where he's in the 1600s and gets transported to the future. Then there was the remake on Hulu, which I thought was decent, but like, the first 2 movies are sacred. And I'm glad that this looks like, it takes place in the same universe as those first 2 movies. Nothing to complain about there. This is being made internally at Saber. I think they did a decent job on the Evil Dead game. I think that Quiet Place game from last year was solid as well. Of course, they made Space Marine 2 and they're working on Jurassic Park Survival. If they're going to be the only other company besides Konami and Capcom making these Resident Evil style survival horror games, that's fine. They're getting all the good licenses and I hope they get Halloween or Friday the 13th going forward because I'm sick of the multiplayer. I just want these single player games. I'm glad we're getting it. But speaking of single player games, in that interview I talked about in the last video with Nate Fox, where he basically gassed up Ghost of Yotei in a really awesome way and got me excited for it. One thing he was talking about is that he'd love to go back to the Infamous franchise. He said he's a little busy right now with Ghost of Yotei, and that's completely fair. He said Sucker Punch is a 1-game studio, which is great because clearly being a 2-game studio does not work because it's not worked for every other Sony company in the business except for Insomniac for some reason. So I'm glad about that. But he said he'd love to do a PS5 port of all 3 Infamous games. So that would be Infamous 1, 2, Festival of Blood DLC, Second Son, and First Light. That would be the best package on PS5. They need to do it because if it sells well and gets people excited for Infamous again, they could do those games in between the Ghost games and it would be awesome. I mean, superhero stuff is kind of in the same spot that it was when Infamous came out, where it's on a little bit of a decline. So I think people would be happy and excited to see a cool superhero character like Cole McGrath come back. I think it's a no-brainer. I really hope it happens. So let them know in some way, maybe on Twitter or something, if you're excited about this like I am. But sky's the limit. If they do that, then we can get a Killzone trilogy. If that works out, we can get a Resistance trilogy. If that works out, we could get the Ratchet and Clank PS3 trilogy. I mean, the Uncharted trilogy could be ported up to PS5. Who knows? Good things are happening. I'm glad to see Sony Studios acknowledging the games that I honestly think were better than a lot of the ones they're making now. Everything's cool in PlayStation land, but yeah, I'm really excited for Hellraiser Revival, man. All good stuff going on, except Ubisoft selling microtransactions and saying it makes the game more fun. Anyway, guys, as always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.